Welcome to the beginning of your rotorcraft journey and our first helicopter lesson. My name is Paul Martin, and I will be your flight instructor. I must say it is a very beautiful time of the year to begin your helicopter trainings at Grenoble-Lou-Versoud Aerodrome. Meet our trainer helicopter, Cabri G2. You already know how the flight control surfaces of airplanes work, right? But do you understand how a helicopter turns without ailerons and speeds up without elevator? Here, look at the Cabri's main rotor. This is our main control surface. By tilting the main rotor disc forward, backward, left, or right, we can change the direction of the thrust vector and move the helicopter in a chosen direction. As with most French-designed helicopters, the main rotor blades advance in a clockwise direction. What do you think we need the tail rotor for? Walk closer and look at it. By changing the tail rotor's thrust, we can control the direction that the nose of the helicopter points. The Cabri G2 utilizes a fenestrant-type tail rotor. It differs from a conventional open-tail rotor by being integrally housed within the tail boom. Now, let's continue our training inside the cockpit. Get in and buckle up. Welcome aboard. Don't be surprised that you're sitting on the right side. Unlike in airplanes, pilots typically sit on the right seat in helicopters. Now, let's make you familiar with the Cabri's flight controls. Look here, this is what we call the collective lever, or simply collective. We use collective to climb or descend, or in other words, to control our vertical speed. Try raising it up and lowering it down. Make sure to leave it in the most downward position. Here's what we call the cyclic stick, or just cyclic. It looks similar to the airplane's stick, doesn't it? And behaves very similarly too, at least in a forward flight. Left or right inputs cause the helicopter to roll into a turn, and forward and back inputs change the pitch attitude. Try moving it left and right, forward and aft. On the top of the cyclic stick, you can see a cyclic trim knob. The Cabri uses a dual-axis electric trim, allowing you to completely release static forces in flight, both longitudinal and lateral. Try pushing the knob left and right, forward and aft. And finally, the anti-torque pedals, located in the same place as the rudder pedals in an airplane. They serve a similar purpose, controlling the direction that the nose of the aircraft points. In a hover flight, they help you to control yaw and heading, but in forward flight, they serve the same purpose as in airplanes, adjusting the side slip angle. Try pushing the left and right pedals one after the other, and look at them in the process. Sounds pretty easy so far, isn't it? Let's have a look at the instrument panel. I'm sure you've already spotted what we call the six-pack. 6 primary instruments all airplanes also have. Look at the altimeter, for instance. As you see, the ground elevation here is around 720 feet. An interesting fact related to altitudes. In forward flight, a helicopter can fly much higher than when it's hovering. After our hovering training, you will understand why it's like that. Now look at the airspeed indicator. What can we learn just by looking at it? You can see right away that the indications start from 20 knots. The caution range lasts up to 45 knots, and you should never exceed 130 knots airspeed. Why should we be cautious when flying slow? I will show why in our next training. Now, would you please look at the vertical speed indicator? It is very important to monitor VSI, especially on descent. If you descend faster than 300 feet per minute at low airspeed, you may settle your helicopter into its own downwash. This is called a vortex ring state, and it is an emergency situation you will eventually learn to deal with. But for now, simply get used to monitoring your VSI, just like you monitor altitude, airspeed, and engine parameters. Another thing to remember while flying is to keep the fuselage in a correct streamline position. For that, we monitor the turn coordinator ball, just like we do in airplanes. Or the more sensitive indicator, the yaw string, just like we do in gliders. The ball and the yaw string should be kept in the center. We won't use other classic instruments much in our trainings because we will mostly fly by visual references. However, you do need to know about the EPM, which stand for Electronic Pilot Monitor. Let's start the engine and avionics to see it running. Great. Now you see the electronic pilot monitor running. EPM combines all common motor and rotor monitoring instruments on a single LCD screen, as well as the in-flight fuel management. The thing we're most interested in is the smart power indicator. Have a closer look at it. It is called the MLI, which stands for Multiple Limit Indicator. It is a special feature of the Cabri G2. A red line shows the available performance and limits at a glance. We will refer to the power indications a lot in our trainings. Okay, enough talking. Time to get up in the air and fly. In our next training, you will have your first taste of piloting a Cabri G2. Here we are, flying along the Grèzevaudan Valley in the French Alps. Look around while I'm piloting. On your left-hand side, you can see the Belladon mountain range. And on your right-hand side there are the Chartreuse Mountains. Beautiful, aren't they? On the count of 3, I will give you control of the helicopter. Prepare to slightly push cyclic forward to maintain the correct attitude. 3, 2, 1, it's yours now. Using the cyclic, keep the helicopter in a straight and level flight along the Isar River you can see below. I will take care of the collective control and maintaining the altitude, so you can focus on our speed and ground track. Reach cruise speed of 80 knots. Push the cyclic to speed up, or pull the cyclic to slow down. Now try to maintain 80 knots through all maneuvers. Maintain the same speed, try to remember the position of the horizon line and maintain it visually in the same place. That will make sure you are flying with the same speed. Keep flying straight until the river begins curving to the right. See how you always need to keep the cyclic deflected to maintain the same attitude? After you've found a proper cyclic position, use the cyclic trim to release static forces. Feels better now, right? Let's try some turns now. You see the river is turning right? Try to fly above the river and turn right together with its curve. There you are. Now we'll make a sharp left turn following the river line. But this time, try to make the turn coordinated. Don't forget to use pedals to avoid any slip and skid, just like in airplanes. Now you see how little pressure on the controls you need to control a helicopter. Let's do something you never do in airplanes. Let's bring our airspeed to 0 knots. Gently pull the cyclic back until you reach 0 knots. This is called hovering out of ground effect. Feels interesting for airplane pilots, doesn't it? Keep the cyclic back to maintain 0 knots airspeed. Now, try to use your trim to move the neutral position of your cyclic. You can trim the helicopter when you hover, when you climb, or when you're on cruise. This releases the forces on the stick and lets you better feel the controls. Nice. But just when you thought flying helicopters is all easy, I want to admit that currently I'm helping you stabilize our helicopter. You see, since we slowed down, the airflow over the tail is not enough to counteract the helicopter's rotating tendencies anymore. So I keep pushing the right pedal and adjusting our cyclic a little to stabilize our flight. Let me show you what happens when I stop helping you. Okay, I'm assisting you again. Don't let these rotating tendencies scare you. It is a fun challenge, and you will master it in no time during our next trainings. As for our today's lesson, I believe a little more practice with maintaining the correct speed would do you good. I would even recommend reviewing your old airplane trainings related to attitude and turns. Welcome to our first hovering lesson. To hover in ground effect means to maintain a constant position a few feet above the ground. It is not as easy as it sounds. In fact, hovering a helicopter is challenging. A bit like trying to pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time. A helicopter has 3 highly sensitive controls, but at first I will be giving you only one control at a time to handle. Your first control to master will be the collective lever. Remember, it is located on the left side of your seat. The collective controls your height above the ground. We will use it to take off to a hover. When you raise the collective control, the pitch angles of the main rotor blades increase. This increases lift and the helicopter climbs. When you lower the collective, pitch angles decrease. This decreases lift, so the helicopter descends. Easy, right? Another thing we will need today is the EPM, which stand for Electronic Pilot Monitor. You might remember it from our previous lesson. Today you will learn monitoring power percentage with a multiple limit indicator. The most important thing to remember about power indications is to never go over 100%. You can read more about that subject in the briefing notes. Okay, enough lecturing. Time to fly. Before taking off, always check that all gauges are green and that we have enough fuel. As you can see, the tank is half full. This is more than enough for our training. Now look left and right to make sure we don't have people or vehicles approaching. All good, and we are clear to go. You have collective control now. Slowly raise it to the point where we become light on skids. This will be around 65% of available power. Be careful. First, you won't see any reaction to your movement, but power will catch up soon. Now, move the collective just a little more to get to 2 feet altitude hover. And don't mind us moving laterally. Today I will take care of that. You are. Keep hovering at 2 feet now. You see, since we are hovering so low, the altimeter will be not useful. Judge your altitude just by looking outside. 2 feet is approximately 1/3 of the length of the Cabri skid. Remember, the main trick of the hovering challenge is to move the controls as gently as possible. When you find a proper collective position, you don't need to keep adjusting it, given that we're not moving and there's no wind like today. Look around and memorize how 2 feet of altitude looks. Also, look at the power indications and memorize the number. This is the amount of power required for hovering in ground effect, and it depends on lots of factors such as our weight and the weather. But you may find it useful to remember this number for our training today. Now let's see how little you should increase power to hover at 8 feet altitude. Gently raise the collective just enough to get to 8 feet altitude and stop there. Great. You're getting more and more confident with collective control. Keep hovering at 8 feet while I'm talking. Look around and try to remember how 8 feet altitude looks like. It is an important altitude. You should avoid climbing higher when you hover in ground proximity. We will talk about it more in our later trainings, but for now, just remember, if your engine quits when you're higher than 8 feet and you don't have enough airspeed, you won't be able to land safely. So whenever you hover stationary in ground proximity or hover taxi, stay below 8 feet and you'll be safe. Now let's go back to a 2-foot hover. Still remember which power indications to aim for. There you are. I can see that now you understand sensitivity and inertia of the collective lever much better. Our last objective for this training session is landing from a hover. Remember to always stabilize your hover at 2 feet altitude before touching the ground. Now, very gently lower the collective control until you find yourself firmly on ground. Congratulations. You just did your first landing from a hover. You mastered collective in hovering flight pretty well. Time to start mastering anti-torque pedals now. Welcome to the second part of our hovering training series. This time you'll get familiar with anti-door pedals. I will be helping you at first, but by the end of this training session, you will be in full control over our heading. Let's start with taking off to a hover. You already know how to do that. Before raising collective, always check that all gauges are green, we have enough fuel, and there are no obstacles nearby. All good. You have collective control now. Gently raise it, get light on the skids first, and only then take off to a 2-foot hover. It is nice to see you are getting more and more confident with collective control. Stabilize your hover at 2 feet altitude. Let's move on to the anti-torque pedals now. Look, they're located in the same position as the rudder pedals in airplanes. They also serve a similar purpose, which is controlling the direction where the nose of the aircraft points. Only that in helicopters, it happens due to increasing or reducing the thrust produced by the tail rotor. Try to gently apply pedals one after the other, and you will see how the nose yaws in the direction of the applied pedal. Easy, isn't it? Now, try to turn toward the helicopter parking on your right-hand side. Apply the right pedal to start the turn, and the left one to stop at the required heading. Pretty good. When making pivoting turns, try to make one smooth movement and then stop exactly at the desired heading. Now, turn 90 degrees left, back to our original heading toward the runway and away from the hangars. Easy, right? Keep in mind that we use pedals to make turns like that only when hovering. We call it a pedal turn. In cruise, we change the direction of flight using the cyclic stick, while pedals are used only for adjusting the side slip angle, like in airplanes. By the way, remember our briefing? There's a torque effect caused by our rotor rotating clockwise, and we use pedals to eliminate this rotating tendency. Until now, I was assisting you with the anti-torque control, so you would be able to try changing heading without additional stress of fighting the torque. It's time for you to have full pedal control. On the count of 3, I will stop assisting you with anti-torque. Remember, our rotor rotates clockwise, which means the torque effect will immediately turn our nose left. You will have to press the right pedal to counteract that torque. Ready? You'll be given full pedal control in 3, 2, 1, now. Try to maintain our original heading toward the runway. It is all a matter of finding a good position for the pedals, which counteracts the torque. Doing good. Now let's turn 90 degrees left toward the edge of the trees on the left-hand side. Yes, the helicopter will try to turn there itself as soon as you ease your right pedal pressure. With small, gentle pedals movements, try to keep our nose heading toward the edge of the trees. Good. You're getting better and better. Let's now slowly turn right all the way to the helicopter parking, which is behind our back now. Now let's turn 90 degrees left, back to our original heading, toward the runway. Super. Now you know how to change and maintain heading with anti-torque pedals, as well as how to counteract the torque. I will now let you perform a little more advanced landing than last time. You will have control of both collective and pedals at the same time. First, fully stabilize your hover at 2 feet altitude. Carefully maintain your heading toward the runway. Always make sure you don't have any movement or yawing before you touch the ground. Now, gently lower the collective control until you find yourself firmly on the ground. Congratulations! You landed while having full control over the pedals and collective. Way to go! Today, you mastered anti-torque pedals. See you in our next training session dedicated to cyclic control.